Hey, what's up? It's your favorite doctors, Dr. J.
And Dr. K.
Let's talk about Laila.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, with the recap with Laila, basically the episode begins with Rhonda. And Grandma Rhonda is confronting Brooke because she is wondering, does she know where Laila is? She is going to hunt her down, and she's going to make her basically go to Berkeley and do what it is that she wants her to do. And so, Brooke and Rhonda basically get into this discussion about the role of a parent. And Rhonda is saying that I push my son, I push my granddaughter because I did not have. And it's like this whole, and I can see Rhonda as a grandmother and from a grandmother perspective, and as a parent, I just kind of see like all of us have that desire to push our children. Well, most of us have that desire to push our children to receive excellence. And I think when you look at it from a historical standpoint, when you're talking about the African American experience, it's really about high achievement and what does that mean for a person of color and how does one sustain that and the pressure that it takes just to live in these sort of social spaces.
Answer me! I bought you beautiful dresses, $300 dress on a wire hanger.
And this is the whole thing that's pushing Laila, like with the cutting, with the suicidal tendencies and that sort of thing. What we find is Brooke trying to get Rhonda to understand that she must push to have a life beyond being a parent. She has to look for her own purpose, and her purpose cannot be towards mothering Laila forever. I think that's something like all of us as parents, like it's going to come that empty nest time when you are no longer raising and it's more of coaching and then less from coaching to more of being a confidant. What we find is later on that actually Laila did go to Central America. I don't know what she's gonna do. She flew to Central. I think she's in Peru or something. Got some currency. She's in a hotel, but she doesn't really speak the language. She's going to be trying to navigate. I don't know how long that's going to be. I don't imagine it will be too long because she will realize that freedom not free. But the message after Drew talks to Rhonda again, she was like, if she falls, let her fall. And it's okay because our job as parents is to raise good citizens, but they also have to go with the bumps and bruises. So my question for you is, are you as confident as a therapist that Laila has what it takes to make it out in Central America?
I mean, she's made it there. She's made it there, and I don't even know if it's so much confidence at this point in what she can do. She's hell-bent on being there. I mean, she tried from a little girl to leave. She took a train away. She's gotten on a plane to leave. I mean, it's like, how many other ways she's going to leave? Like plane, trains, automobiles. Like, she's just like, and when you're that determined to go somewhere, I think it's probably more, I'll be here, to help catch her when she falls, wherever she lands. And that's the best that you can do, I think, as a parent and even as a clinician, as a therapist. I mean, it's hard to hear the things that our clients say, and especially with my teenagers and my young people, and hearing about, I just heard one today of these things, and it's like, how do you decipher? And it's, there are things that are life and death, dangerous issues, and there are other things, it's like, oh, that's not really a preference. but they've got to live and they have to learn. And so I don't know if I think she's showing what she's made of, and as long as she's going to be on this trip, Brooke will be there with her.
And Grandma Rhonda, it just kind of funny. You know what? It kind of reminds me, Grandma Rhonda reminds me of Joe Jackson in the Michael Jackson, the Jackson American Story, when those men got to be 30 years old, and Joe Jackson wanted to get a belt and beat them for leaving the town.
Michael, Colin, you're gonna get it.
And the thing is, she was like, I need to go to Peru and whip my belt and bring her back. And I'm like, Grandma, you can't beat your kids into it. First of all, that's traumatic. Parents, and I'm looking at you out there as someone who, covers literature and that sort of thing. We have to let our caged birds sing. We have to. We cannot lock these kids in this sort of suspended sort of adolescence forever. We have to be courageous enough to push our kids out and let them, grow. I mean, it's just like the eagle. The eagle takes the eaglets up in the air, drop them over the mountain, and then they learn to flap or they perish. In life, that's how it has to be. It's the toughest thing, for parents. But, we cannot let our fears suffocate our children. And when I look at Laila's art, it reminds me in many ways of sort of like slave narratives of like the Frederick Douglass or Harriet Jacobs and that sort of thing, where she knows there's something in her, but she doesn't quite. I think Brooke helped her to understand that she was enslaved. And that and that's important because a lot of people don't realize that they are enslaved. So it's important to get that. And then once you understand that, then it's the push then to say, well, what does it mean to be free? And I think that's what I kind of look at her story for. But I'm not going to lie. I'm still concerned like Grandma Rhonda. I'm like, Laila, you can't. I'm like, Laila, I don't know about this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not wise. But I mean, she's got to live her own life, and she's got to make her own mistake. I mean, what's she gonna do? Wrap her in a bubble? Like, you just can't. You can't. And even listening more to Rhonda, God love her. She did the best that she could, and I think it's gone from like this sort of survival role. She's trying to survive, but she's not helping her thrive. To know herself, to be who she is, because she's so constrained within roles. My son calls me, the mother's gone, I gotta get there and take care of him and this little girl. And like, I'm glad she was able to do that. It sounds like she stopped her life in Vegas, came to LA, California to take care of her, but at a certain point, you can't make her live out the life you wish you had. And I think it's more damaging. It clearly was damaging. The girl wanted to kill herself because of that. So do you keep pushing and pushing and pushing until she breaks, or do you let her bend and be more flexible and figure these things out on her own? When I said that about bending, I think about when we look at trees and how they bend with the wind, and even on an airplane, like if it was, people get concerned about the bending or the turbulence on the plane, but planes are meant to take that turbulence and be flexible with it. If it was any more rigid, it would just break and everything would fall apart. And so you can't live your life in this rigid state. There's got to be some, some semblance of, just bending and flexibility and learning. And all we can do is just be there, when and if she falls.
And in the session with Laila, I think it's more of a message to parents. And it reminds me of something that one of my favorite rappers from Chicago, Common, said. He said, the same hoods that raised us can age us. And what that means is what it took for us to survive may be the thing that also limits our growth in our life. As a parent, it's unnatural to continue to parent for the rest of your life. You cannot do that. And so, closing the chapter with Laila, I think the kid is going to be okay. I just think, I'm frightened for her as just, fictional. I'm frightened for her, but I think that goes to show like the good storytelling that was there, because I think all of us as parents identify with that fear. So, yeah.
And I think it's important just lastly to note culturally that it is a story that can be about us too. That we're not just trying to make it out. Not everybody came from the mud, even though some want to act like they do. That as we have progressed, as a people, there are going to be more and more stories of that, of young people trying to find themselves because they're not growing up in the same situations that we were, and to allow them that freedom, enough flexibility to be there and help catch them if they fall.
All right. So we closed the session on Laila.